There are many ways to customize and personalize your NovaChat device to best fit an AAC user's needs through the chat software settings. In this video, we will explore the Application Settings menu within the chat software. For this video, you will find YouTube chapters or timestamps for each of the settings. Select the chapter directly below the video for the setting you wish to explore. To start, navigate to Application Settings within the chat software menu. We will go through each of the headings and subheadings within Application Settings and discuss what each setting does and how you could use that setting with an AAC user. Note that for this video, we will apply these settings to the WordPower 60 basic vocabulary. Some features and settings may appear differently in other vocabularies. The first section of settings we will look at is the Input section. You will notice there are several subheadings within this section: Access, Button Settings, and Speech Display Bar. Let's look at the settings within the Access subheading first. We will first look at the button timing settings. There are three options to customize timing settings: Acceptance Time, Release Time, and Activate on Release. Acceptance time is the length of time required to hold down a button press before it will register. In other words, a button is not selected until you hold that button or switch for a set amount of time. For example, if the acceptance time is set to 0.5, you must hold a button for 0.5 seconds to make a selection. Acceptance time might work well for an AAC user that has a tremor or a communicator that might make frequent accidental hits on their device. To enable acceptance time, select Acceptance Time, then Enable. You can then select Time to set the time value you want. You can always come back and adjust the time value if necessary, so start with a length of time that you think will work for the person using AAC, and you can readjust if needed. The next timing setting we will look at is Release Time. This is the length of time required to wait between button presses. In other words, another button cannot be selected until the release time expires. Release time might work well for an AAC user that frequently presses the same button multiple times.
Candy. Cheese. Cheese.
To enable release time, select Release Time, then Enable. Adjust the time value of this setting depending on the AAC user's needs. The last timing setting we will look at is Activate on Release. This setting will only activate a button after it has been released. With this setting, you can touch anywhere on the screen and drag your finger or a stylus until you are on the button you want. Releasing the button will then select it. This might be helpful for an AAC user that has low tone or poor motor control and has difficulty lifting his or her finger when selecting icons. Activate on Release might also be helpful for communicators that tend to rest their hand or fingers on the screen. To enable this feature, select the checkbox next to Activate on Release. The next section of settings we will explore are the scanning settings. There are a variety of scanning settings that can be configured for individuals who use a switch to help them communicate. First, enable scanning by selecting Scanning, then the checkbox to enable scanning. Now you will be able to set up how many switches the person using AAC will use. Select Switch Access, then Switch Configuration. Now select one or two switches based on your communicator's needs. If you choose to enable auto scan, scanning will activate without holding a switch. If you do not enable auto scan, a switch will need to be activated in order to move through each button or icon. To set up and activate a wired or Bluetooth switch, select Switch 1 and/or Switch 2. Once in the switch menu, you will be prompted to activate the switch you want to connect to the AAC user's device. Be sure that if you select two switches, you activate the correct switch to advance the scan and the correct switch to activate or stop the scan. Once you set up and connect the switch or switches to your client's device, you will want to set up the scan pattern for your client. Go back to the switch scanning menu and select Patterns. Now select Mode to change the way a page is scanned. There are several scan pattern options you can choose from: linear, row column, block, and flow. A linear scan pattern will scan through each button from left to right, beginning in the first row. When the icon or button you want is highlighted, activate the switch to select the button. A row column scan pattern will first highlight and scan through each row of buttons, beginning with the top row and moving down the screen. When the row that contains the button you want is highlighted, activate the switch to select that row. The scan will then step through each button from left to right across each column on the screen. When the button you want is highlighted, activate the switch to select. A block scan highlights groups of buttons in a block. To set up the number of rows or columns in the scan block, select Block in the Mode menu. A new window will open and you can select how many vertical blocks you want to scan and how many horizontal blocks you want to scan within each block. You can also choose to switch to row column within each group of blocks by selecting the checkbox to switch to row column within groups. To keep the changes you have made, select OK. Go back out to the vocabulary to start using block scanning. When the block that contains the button you want is highlighted, activate the switch. The scan will then highlight smaller blocks, rows, or columns within the block, depending on the settings you have selected. When the button you want is highlighted, activate the switch. A flow scan pattern highlights groups of buttons that flow from one row into the next. To set up the number of groups within a flow scan, select Flow from the Mode menu. A new window will pop up. You can now increase or decrease the number of groups within a flow, or select as many as possible. When you are finished setting up flow options, select OK. Go back to the vocabulary to start using flow scanning. When the flow that contains the button you want is highlighted, activate your switch to select. Flow scanning is provided as a scanning option for individuals who do not require consistency within a scan pattern. Once you have selected the appropriate scan mode or pattern for the AAC user, you can set up other scan settings in the scanning menu. Under Mode, you will see Scan Optimization. Scan Optimization only works in block scan mode and flow scan mode. You can enable Scan Optimization by selecting the checkbox next to this setting. When Scan Optimization is turned on, blocks or flows are scanned in the most efficient way on each page. If Scan Optimization is turned off, blocks or flows will be scanned the same way on all pages. The next setting you can enable in the scanning menu is Scan SDB. When turned on, the speech display bar will be scanned. The AAC user can then select the speech display bar with their switch when highlighted to speak the current text. In addition to scanning the SDB, you can also include the SDB Clear button, or the X, in scans. When turned on, the AAC user can select the X when highlighted to delete the last word in the speech display bar. If the communicator does not select the X button right away when highlighted, the X icon will change to a triangle. When the triangle is highlighted and selected by the AAC user, all the text in the SDB will be cleared. You can also choose to enable scanning of notifications in the speech display bar. If scan notifications are turned on, Notifications in the speech display bar will be highlighted and can be selected by activating a switch. Selecting a text message notification in the speech display bar will open the text conversations list. The last setting you can enable in this menu is the Skip Empty Area setting. When turned on, scanning will skip over empty buttons or buttons that only have a speech message action but no text. The last section of settings we will look at in the scanning menu is Scan Timing. There are several settings within this menu that you can customize for the person using AAC. First, let's look at Scan Speed. Scan speed is the amount of time it takes for your device to move from one button, row, or column to the next. The default scan speed is 1 second. This means it takes 1 second from the time one key is highlighted until the next key is highlighted. You can increase or decrease the scan speed by selecting the plus or minus icons to set the speed that is most appropriate for the AAC user. When you are finished setting the scan speed, select OK. The next setting we will explore is number of rescans. This is the number of times the scan will automatically repeat on a page. Once a scanning pattern is started, the pattern will restart for a set number of times. Once you reach the set number of rescans, the scan will stop until a switch is activated again. You can set the number of rescans by selecting the plus or minus icons in the number of rescans window. Choose OK to save your selection. It is recommended to start with a lower number of rescans and modify based on the AAC user's needs. If the number of rescans is set too high, the communicator may become frustrated. Now let's look at activation delay. This is the amount of time before a scan selection is processed. Activation delay allows a switch communicator to self-correct or change the selected button before it is activated. For example, if the activation delay is set to 1 second and you accidentally select a button you don't want, you have 1 second to activate the switch again to deselect that button and scan to a new button. Lastly, Auto Restart allows you to restart a scan cycle automatically after an activation. You can turn this feature on or off by checking the box next to this feature. The next section of settings we will look at in the input menu are visual effects. Visual effects help provide visual feedback to an AAC user when selecting buttons. There are several visual effects that can be modified, customized, and personalized within the chat software. The visual effects menu might be grayed out and inaccessible on your client's device. This is because visual effects is dependent on the button press draw setting. You must first turn on button press draw to use visual effects. To turn this feature on, select button press draw under button settings. Then select Visual Effect to turn on visual effects. Now you will be able to select the Visual Effects settings menu. Once in the Visual Effects menu, you will see a variety of settings you can customize. The first setting you will see is Outline. When turned on, an outline will appear around the active button or area. You can then select an outline color in order to assist the AAC user in seeing the active button more clearly. You can also set the width of the outline by selecting the plus and minus buttons in the Outline Width menu. Selecting the plus will increase the width of the line, while selecting the minus will decrease the width of the line. The next section of settings you can modify are the overlay settings. When translucent overlay is turned on, a subtle amount of color will appear over the active area, making it easier to see which button is active. You can set the overlay opacity by selecting the plus or minus buttons in the opacity menu. The opacity of the button is how clearly the underlying image shows through. To set the color of the translucent overlay, select Overlay Color and then select which color you want from the menu. Directly below Color Overlay, you will see invert colors. When invert colors is turned on, the color of the active area is reversed. This setting might be beneficial for clients with visual impairments in order to help them recognize the icons more clearly. Let's go back out to the vocabulary and take a look at what the modified settings look like so far.
Go. For a walk.
The next setting we will explore is Magnify. When Magnify is turned on, the active area is magnified. You can set the level of magnification by selecting Magnify Multiplier. This setting might be beneficial for individuals with visual impairments to help them identify which button they are selecting.
Your turn.
Lastly, Animate Effects visibly moves or grows the active area on the screen. In order for Animate Effects to work, you must turn on one or more visual effects.
Want. To play.
The next group of settings we will look at are Auditory Effects. Auditory effects provide auditory feedback when a button is selected. This setting may be beneficial for clients who need an auditory cue when a button is selected. You can enable auditory effects by checking the box next to Enable Auditory Effects. You can now select the audio output device to hear the auditory effects. If you select Speaker, the auditory effect will come out of the NovaChat speaker on the back of the device. If you select Earphone, the auditory effect will come out of a connected earphone or headset. To set the auditory effect volume, select Effect Volume and adjust the volume by sliding your finger or tapping the Effect Volume bar. Slide the bar to the right to increase the volume and slide the bar to the left to decrease the volume. The Scanning Beep setting is dependent on scanning being enabled in the input menu. When Scanning Beep is turned on, a beep will be used as the auditory effect instead of a speech prompt. Note that you can only select either Scanning Beep or Button Auditory Effect. You cannot select both. The next setting is Button Auditory Effect. When you select this setting, you can choose to hear the button label or button message during button activations. If you select Speak Label, the label on the button will be heard. If you select Speak Message, the message associated with the button will be heard when a button is selected. If you select Listen to Entire Effect, the entire message will play when auditory fishing is turned on. Some individuals may benefit from hearing the entire auditory effect while auditory fishing is turned on, but cannot physically maintain the button until it is heard. Turning Listen to Entire Effect on will play the entire message with just the tap of the button while auditory fishing is on. Lastly, you can choose to have a different voice for auditory effects than what you selected for the client's voice output. When you select voice settings, tap the arrow to the right of the currently selected voice to open a list of voices. You can now select the voice you want for auditory effects. For clients using auditory effects for scanning or auditory fishing, it might be beneficial to choose a voice that is different from their voice output. This way, when the client is scanning or fishing, communication partners can recognize when auditory effects are being used and when the client is speaking. The next setting we will explore is fishing. When fishing is turned on, you can preview a button with a visual or auditory cue, then select the button a second time to activate it. This setting might be appropriate for clients with attention or visual impairments that use a keyguard. Let's explore what this setting looks like and sounds like when auditory effects are enabled.
I
Want
want
to go
to go
Clear.
Now, let's look at the setting when only visual effects are enabled.
My turn.
Next, we will explore how to set up and modify gestures within the chat software. A gesture is a motion that can be made to the screen to trigger a specific action. Gestures can be applied to a single page or to all pages within a vocabulary. To enable gestures, navigate to the Input menu and Application Settings and check the box next to Gestures. Let's set up a gesture to sound a help signal for the entire vocabulary. Go back out to the vocabulary and select Menu, then Edit Mode. Select the menu again, then Vocabulary Settings. Tap Gestures in the Vocabulary Settings menu. To set up a new gesture, tap the three dots in the upper right corner, then select New. Now choose which action you want to activate the gesture by selecting an option from the drop-down menu. Next, enter a label for the gesture to help you remember what the gesture is for. Lastly, select an action for the gesture from the drop-down menu. Go back to the vocabulary and exit Edit Mode. Now, when I double tap the screen, a help signal will sound. You can also set up a gesture for a single page. Navigate to the page where you want to add the gesture and edit the page. You can then add a gesture by selecting and holding the back arrow and tap New at the bottom. Follow the same steps as before to add a new gesture for a single page.
Play. Cars. Trucks.
Now we will look at the button settings under the Input menu. The first setting we will explore is Tilt. Tilt refers to the orientation of the device and screen rotation. To set the action the screen takes when the device is rotated or tilted, select Action. There are various settings within this menu. When Expand and Speak is selected, the speech display bar will fill the screen and speak when the device is tilted. When Expand Only is selected and the device is tilted, the text in the speech display bar will fill the screen and no sound will be made. This option might be helpful in a quiet setting such as a library, so the person using AAC can show their communication partner their message without having the device speak. The next option under Tilt action is Auto Change Orientation. When this option is selected, the screen will shift orientation automatically when the device is tilted. Alternatively, when no action is selected, the screen will be locked in the current orientation. To set the client's preferred device orientation, select Preferred Orientation in the Tilt menu. You can choose Portrait, a vertical orientation, or Landscape, a horizontal orientation. Next in the Button Settings menu is Beep on Button Press. When enabled, a beep sound will be audible when a button is selected.
Cheese. And crackers.
Button Press Draw is the next setting we will explore. We looked at this setting previously when we explored visual effects. Let's look at each option within this menu. When none is selected, no visual indication will appear when you select a button.
Watch. TV.
If normal is selected, you will be able to enable or disable a gradient fill to use as a style of visual
Watch.
indication when you select
TV.
a button. We will look at gradient fill later in the style settings. If visual effect is selected within the Button Press Draw menu, you can select from a variety of visual effects to use as the visual indication when you select a button. The visual effects setting in the Button Press Draw menu must be turned on for visual effects to
Watch.
work in the Access menu.
TV.
To learn more about visual effects, navigate to the Visual Effects chapter of this video. Show Hidden Buttons allows you to unhide all hidden buttons at once by enabling this feature. If an AAC user has buttons hidden on several pages, Show Hidden Buttons remembers which buttons are hidden in order to unhide them for a specific purpose or period of time. This setting might be beneficial if you are modeling for your client during a session and want to model all words available on the device, including words that have previously been hidden. The next set of settings we will explore within the input menu are the speech display bar settings. There are several settings you can enable within this menu. First is Tap to Speak. When turned on, the speech display bar will speak when selected. When turned off, the speech display bar will not activate when selected. When Tap to Expand is enabled, the speech display bar will expand when selected and fill the screen. The message will be displayed until the AAC user selects the back arrow to return to their vocabulary.
Help.
Enable menu toggles the speech display bar context menu on or off. When Enable Clear SDB or X is enabled, the X is displayed on the far right in the speech display bar. The X deletes the last word in the SDB,
Drink.
and holding the X will clear the entire speech display bar.
Drink.
Holding the
Water.
X will also stop any
And
active speech,
Juice.
which might be beneficial
And
if a communicator
milk.
has forgotten to
And
clear their display
chocolate
and
milk.
has a long message that they activate.
Drink water and juice and milk.
When Enable Clear SDB is disabled, the X will not be displayed in the speech display bar. Enable Notification Bar hides or displays notification icons, such as text messages, in the notifications area of the speech display bar. Now that we have finished exploring the Input Settings menu, let's explore the settings within the Speech Output menu. The first group of settings we can customize within this menu are the voice settings, synthesizer, voice settings, pronunciations, and pause between words. Within the synthesizer menu, you have several options to choose the speech synthesizer that best meets your client's needs and chosen language. You may want to choose a synthesizer, then explore various voices that are available within that synthesizer. Each speech synthesizer has its own unique set of voices. After you choose a synthesizer, you can customize the client's voice under Voice Settings. Tap the down arrow in this menu to explore available voices. If the voice you select does not play a preview right away, you can tap Test to hear a sample of the voice. You can also set the pitch and rate of the voice to further meet your client's needs and preferences. Be sure to select Save once you have finished selecting and modifying the voice. You can modify the way a synthesizer pronounces specific words and names in the Pronunciations menu. To add a word to the pronunciation dictionary, select the three dots in the upper right corner of the screen and tap New. Names are often mispronounced by the device, so let's add Brittany to the pronunciation dictionary so it is pronounced correctly. In the Pronounce box, type in the name or word the device is pronouncing incorrectly. In the Pronounce As section, spell the word in a way that will prompt the device to pronounce the name or word correctly. You may have to enter the word's phonetic spelling. You can preview how the device will pronounce the name by selecting Pronounce It. Once the word is pronounced properly, select Save. The next setting in the voice menu is Pause between words. This feature forces a specified speech delay between individual words. This might be helpful for clients or communication partners who have auditory processing difficulties or need extra time processing language. You can set a delay by tapping the plus or minus arrows in the Pause between words menu.
Playing.
Select OK when finished.
iPad. I like playing iPad.
Now, let's look at the next setting in the speech output menu, Character. When the character setting is turned on, the device will speak individual letters and numbers when using the
A.
keyboard.
B. 1, 2, 3.
When the word setting is turned on, the device will speak after every word or button that is selected within the vocabulary. If word is turned off, the device will not speak after every word selection. When the sentence setting is turned on, punctuation added after a series of words will speak the entire message.
That. I like that. Can I go? Can I go?
The grammar setting speaks morphed words after applying the corresponding grammar that has been selected by the communicator. Let's first look at what this setting looks like when turned off. When go is selected,
Go.
followed by ing, the AAC user
Going.
must go to the speech display bar
Go.
and select it to speak the entire word going.
Went.
Alternatively, when the grammar setting is turned on and go is selected, followed by ing, the device automatically combines and speaks the morphed word going without needing to select
Go.
the speech display
Going.
bar.
Go. Went.
Auto-clear affects what happens to the text in the speech display bar after it is spoken. When off is selected, spoken text remains in the speech display bar until it is cleared. When immediate is selected, text is cleared automatically from the speech display bar as soon as it is spoken.
My turn. My turn.
Finally, if after next activation is selected, text is cleared automatically from the speech display bar when you activate a button in the vocabulary.
My turn. My turn. Your turn. Your turn.
The last setting in this section is speech off. When selected and turned on, speech will be off and no sound will be heard from the device when buttons are activated. To turn speech back on, simply select the checkbox to remove the checkmark. The next feature we will explore in the voice output menu is Side Chat. When turned on, Side Chat allows an AAC user to hold two conversations at the same time by enabling the use of a second speech display bar. Once you have enabled Side Chat, return to the vocabulary. You will see an icon with the number 1 in the speech display bar. This icon remains in the speech display bar as you select buttons to have a conversation with someone. To speak to another person while keeping your place and message in the current conversation, select the 1 icon to toggle to a new speech display bar. You will notice the vocabulary goes back to the home page and an icon with the number 2 now appears in the speech display bar. You can now start a conversation with a second individual. You can toggle between the 2 conversations by selecting the 1 and 2 icons in the speech display bar. When you toggle between conversations with Side Chat, the other conversation is not affected, and you can resume where you left off. This feature might be beneficial for fluent communicators in a group setting where they may talk to several people at one time. This feature might also be beneficial if an AAC user is interrupted while talking with a communication partner. Now that we have explored the speech output menu, let's go to the next menu item in the settings menu, Abbreviations. Abbreviations can be used on the keyboard page instead of entering an entire word. You will see that there are pre-programmed abbreviations within the chat software, which cannot be modified or deleted. You can also add new abbreviations. Let's add an abbreviation for the phrase "on my way." Select the three dots in the upper right corner of the Abbreviations page and tap New. Add the letters for the abbreviation you want to use. In this case, we will add OMW. Now, enter the text to be displayed in the Expand To box. In this case, we want to expand OMW to On My Way. Select Save. Once in the vocabulary, navigate to the keyboard page and enter your abbreviation, followed by a period.
W.
The abbreviation should
way.
expand and speak automatically. The next section of settings we will explore are the literacy features and settings within the chat software. First in this menu are the prediction settings. Word prediction helps improve your ability to communicate by predicting a word you intend to speak when using the keyboard, thereby reducing the number of letters you need to enter. There are three types of word prediction available within the chat software: static, learning, and learning plus static. If none is selected, word prediction is disabled. If static prediction is selected, words will be predicted from the large word prediction dictionary within the chat software. Static prediction does not learn, however, and will not add new words to the dictionary. If learning prediction is selected, word prediction includes the ability to learn, starting with an empty library. This option provides the ability to create a small, very specific dictionary. This might be beneficial for a communicator who needs fewer familiar words to choose from. If learning plus static is selected, word prediction includes the ability to learn and add words to the large word prediction dictionary. This type of prediction is a combination of static and learning. Once you have chosen the type of prediction that is best for the AAC user, you can select a default dictionary. The default dictionary is the word prediction dictionary that will be used as the basic source of words for predicting. You can choose either American English or British English as the default dictionary. The Add Words feature allows you to add words directly to the Learning Word Prediction Dictionary. You will see an alphabetical list of all words added from the keyboard, the Add Learned Words screen, or an imported text file. The number after each word represents how many times it was entered for learning prediction. You can review this list to see what words have been added, or add words directly to the list. Review required requires that new words entered from the keyboard in a vocabulary be reviewed before they are added to the word prediction dictionary. You can choose to turn this setting off or on by selecting the box next to Review Required. In the Review Words menu, you can accept or reject new words before they are added to the word prediction dictionary if Review Required is selected. You can add words to the word prediction dictionary by selecting the checkmark next to each word. If you do not want a word added to the word prediction dictionary, you can select the X icon to reject that word. The banned words list prevents specific words from being predicted when typed in the keyboard within the vocabulary. You can add words to this list by entering a word and selecting Add. To remove a word from the banned words list, choose the X icon from the word you want to remove. To add words to the prediction dictionary from a text file, select Import Predictions. The text can be in the form of individual words, sentences, or paragraphs. To learn more about how to import predictions from a text file, refer to the NovaChat User's Guide. Delete Learned Words allows you to delete individual learned words or all learned words from the word prediction dictionary. To delete individual learned words, choose Delete Words and select the X icon next to the word you want to delete. You can also move a word to the banned words list by selecting the arrow icon. To delete all learned words, choose Delete All Words. This will delete all learned and added words that are part of the prediction dictionary. Only the default dictionary will be available for word prediction. Back in the literacy menu, automatic capitalization can be enabled or disabled to automatically capitalize letters at the beginning of a sentence when using the keyboard. Let's look at what this setting looks like when automatic capitalization is turned off.
O G Dog.
Now let's look at this setting when it is turned on.
D O G Dog.
Dynamic grammar labels displays the changes that will be made to words when grammar rules are applied. When dynamic grammar labels are turned off and a word is selected, such as go, the present progressive ing and past tense went show up next to the word. When the tense the AAC user wants is selected, the device will speak the selected word and tense. If dynamic labels are turned on, and after a word like go is selected, the entire word for each verb tense option will be shown. For example, the present progressive ing will be displayed as going, with grammar labels turned on.
Going.
This setting might be best for literate clients who have more developed language skills. It is recommended that dynamic grammar labels be turned off for clients who are still learning language. Button message pop-up is the next setting we will explore. This feature was developed as a transition to literacy feature to help support the transition from graphic symbols to literacy. When button message pop-up is turned on, selecting a button that speaks will display a pop-up of the spoken word or phrase. This may help some communicators associate the animated word with the symbol.
Open. The book.
There are several options within the button message pop-up menu to help you customize this feature for your client. When full screen is turned on, a pop-up fills the entire screen. You can also set how quickly a pop-up expands to its full size and then shrinks back into the button by selecting Zoom Rate. Tap the plus or minus icons to increase or decrease the zoom rate. When timeout is turned on, a pop-up will shrink automatically after the specified display time. You can set the display time by selecting this setting in the menu and tapping the plus or minus icons to set how long the pop-up will be displayed.
Open.
The last feature in the literacy settings menu is Highlight when spoken. When turned on, this feature allows you to see the words highlighted in the speech display bar as they are spoken. This feature might be beneficial for communicators learning language to help support literacy skills.
Playing. Legos. I like playing Legos.
To change the highlight color, navigate to the Style menu and select Highlight Color. You can now choose a color to be displayed as the device highlights each spoken word. The next section of settings we will explore are the settings within the Style menu. In this menu, you can edit colors, fonts, and layout of various features. We will first look at style settings that can be modified within the speech display bar. To change the speech display bar font type and size, select Font. When you select Font again, you will see a variety of font options to choose from. Choose the font that is best for the AAC user. You can also change the size of the font in the speech display bar. The default font size is 20 point. Note that if you change the size of the font and the AAC user is using a Keyguard, the speech display bar may increase or decrease in size, affecting the layout of the screen and how it lines up with the Keyguard. You can also choose to make the font bold or italicized, depending on the needs of the person using AAC.
Open. The door.
The next setting you can modify is the number of lines of text that are displayed in the speech display bar. If you want the icons to fill the entire screen, you can choose to hide the speech display bar. You can also change the background color of the speech display bar. This might be helpful for AAC users with vision impairments, or if you are utilizing the side chat feature.
I like it.
The background color of the side chat speech display bar can also be changed. This might be helpful in distinguishing between the two speech display bars when utilizing this feature. Remember, you must first turn on side chat in the speech output menu to change the background color of side chat SDB. You can also modify the color of the text in the speech display bar. If an AAC user has visual impairments, changing the color of the text in the speech display bar could be beneficial depending on the type and severity of their vision deficit. As shown before, you can also change the color used to highlight words in the speech display bar when using the Highlight When Spoken feature. Note that this feature must be turned on in the literacy menu first to change the highlight color.
Reading. I like reading.
To display icons above the text in the speech display bar, select the checkmark next to SDB Icons. Note that this feature may not work well with a standard keyguard or touch guide.
Play. Legos.
You can also choose to move the position of the speech display bar to the bottom or top of the screen. To position the speech display bar at the top of the screen, select the box next to On Top. This is the default setting. To move the position of the speech display bar to the bottom of the screen, uncheck On Top. Show Button Images will display images on the buttons within the vocabulary. To hide the button images and display only the text labels on buttons, deselect Show Button Images. This setting might be preferable for some AAC users who only wish to display text on the buttons within their vocabulary. When Fill is enabled under the Images settings, the entire button area will be filled with the button image and text. Note that this may distort the way buttons are displayed, and you may need to adjust the size of the text on the buttons if you utilize this setting. Navigation icons are the arrows in the upper right corner of a button, indicating that the button will take you to a different page. You can modify the size of the navigation icons or arrows by tapping Navigation Icon Size and selecting the desired size in the pop-up window. If you select 0, arrows will not appear on the buttons. The next setting we will explore is Gradient Fill. Gradient Fill adds the appearance of depth to a button when it is selected. To enable this feature, you must first turn the button press draw effect to normal within the input menu. Let's first look at how buttons appear if Gradient Fill is turned off.
Go. For a walk.
Now, let's enable Gradient Fill and increase the saturation. You will notice a slight difference in the color and depth of buttons when they are selected if Gradient Fill is turned on. Some AAC users may benefit from disabling Gradient Fill, as the button color will be more opaque with this setting turned off.
I want to go for a walk.
When Animate All is selected under Page Animations, all pages will animate when moving from one page to another.
I want to read.
The next section of settings within the Style menu are miscellaneous settings. There are a few settings within this menu that may be beneficial for some AAC users depending on their needs and preferences. First is Show Grid. When enabled, a wireframe grid will be displayed on all pages. If an AAC user is utilizing a Keyguard or touch guide, Keyguard Inset must be enabled to prevent vocabulary obstruction. A black outline around the sides of the screen, as well as below the speech display bar, will be displayed when Keyguard Inset is enabled. You can turn this setting off if the AAC user is not using a Keyguard or touch guide. The next setting is Show Navigation Bar. When enabled, the navigation bar will be displayed on the vocabulary screen. If deselected, the navigation bar will be hidden, and swiping up from the bottom will make the navigation menu visible. Lastly, you can change how the on-screen menu is accessed within the chat software. If Hidden is selected, the menu button will not be displayed. When you need to access the menu, press and hold on the Back button to open the menu. If Speech Display Bar is selected, the menu button will appear in the speech display bar on the left side. If Menu Bar is selected, the menu button will appear across the top of the screen, above the speech display bar. The next feature we will look at is Word Finder. Word Finder allows you to search for a word within your vocabulary when you don't know where it is. You can choose to have Word Finder visible as a menu item and display Word Finder results as a flip interval in the speech display bar. To display Word Finder as a menu item, simply select the checkbox next to Show Menu Item. Word Finder will now be displayed in the on-screen menu.
Pop.
To set the length of time Word Finder results are displayed within the speech display bar, select Flip Interval and choose a time frame displayed in seconds. Now, when using Word Finder from the keyboard page, you will see the results flip through in the speech display bar for the amount of time you selected. To learn more about Word Finder and how to use this feature within the chat software, go to PRC-Saltillo's YouTube channel and search Word Finder tutorial for NovaChat with chat software. Menu lock prevents AAC users from accessing the menu bar. Once enabled, you will be prompted to choose a password. Select Save to set the password. To lock the menu, go back out to the vocabulary and select the menu. You will see the word Lock with a lock icon next to it. Select Lock to lock the menu. The next time you select the menu, you will notice that application settings as well as other features are not available. To access these settings again, select Unlock and enter the password you previously created. Note that after you make any desired modifications to the chat software, you will need to relock the menu to prevent access. The next feature we will explore is Profiles. Profiles provide a snapshot of the current settings of the system to be saved for easy access at a later time. If an AAC user is bilingual, for example, and uses both an English and Spanish vocabulary, Profiles can be set up to link the two vocabularies to easily switch between the two languages. To learn more about profiles and how to set them up within the chat software, go to PRC-Saltillo's YouTube channel and search Setting Up Profiles in the Chat software. Each of the options within the Profiles menu allows you to create, load, save, and/or delete a profile. Load allows you to load a profile you previously created. New allows you to create a new profile. Save allows you to save the current settings to a previously created profile. Delete allows you to delete a profile you created if you no longer wish to use it. If the person using AAC or their communication partner speak a language other than English, you can change the language of the chat software menu and settings by selecting Language. You can then choose the language you want to be displayed. If the AAC user is using profiles to switch between multilingual vocabulary files, you will need to select the language that matches their vocabulary file when setting up profiles. The next section of settings we will explore are the system settings. This menu allows you to make modifications to the Bluetooth, sound, and display settings. First is the Bluetooth settings menu. When Use with Amplifier is selected, the NovaChat will connect to a specified Bluetooth amplifier. Changing the Bluetooth amplifier might be beneficial for someone who uses a different speech output method for their device, such as headphones or an external speaker. You can choose which amplifier the NovaChat connects to by selecting Connect to Amplifier and choosing from the list of options. To connect the amplifier on the back of the NovaChat device, select the Nova Amp option. If the AAC user wants to use the chat software to send and receive text messages, you can connect a phone to the NovaChat device. To do so, select Use with Phone in the Bluetooth settings menu. Select Connect to Phone to choose the phone you want to connect to. You can now use the NovaChat to control your computer. To do so, you will need to purchase an input stick from the PRC-Saltillo e-store. Input stick is a USB accessory that gives you wireless control over a Windows-based PC, Mac, or Chromebook. You can use Input stick to access the internet, create documents, send emails, watch videos, connect on social media, and more. To learn more about Input stick and computer controls within the chat software, go to PRC-Saltillo's YouTube channel and search NovaChat Computer Controls. The next setting, Keyboard Layout, tells the NovaChat device the language of the computer keyboard. The default keyboard layout is English. To change this, select Keyboard Layout and select the desired language of your keyboard. The next settings we will explore are the sound settings. When audible selection is enabled, an audible click will be heard when navigating through the chat software. When haptic feedback is enabled, a slight vibration can be felt to indicate screen touches. This setting might be beneficial for someone with visual impairments. Display settings control the brightness and screen timeout for the chat software. To adjust the brightness of the screen, select Brightness and slide the bar to the preferred brightness settings. You can also choose to have the device adjust the brightness automatically by selecting the Automatic Brightness option. Screen timeout determines the amount of time it takes for the screen to turn off automatically after a period of inactivity. The default timeout is 10 minutes. Note that setting a longer screen timeout may decrease the battery life of the device. The About Device menu shows various status levels of the NovaChat device. You can discover the device battery and amp status, as well as the device battery and amp battery levels by selecting About Device. The next feature we will explore is Kiosk Mode. Kiosk Mode prevents an AAC user from accessing external applications on the device. Kiosk Mode will lock AAC users within the chat software. When Kiosk Mode is disabled, you will be able to exit the chat software and go to any Android applications that have been downloaded on the device. To enable Kiosk Mode, select the box to insert a checkmark. You can also choose Require Password to require a password when disabling Kiosk Mode. Enter a password for disabling Kiosk Mode and select Save. Disable Device Volume Buttons allows you to disable the volume buttons on the device so the volume cannot be adjusted. This setting prevents an AAC user or communication partner from increasing or decreasing the volume while using the chat software. If Report Anonymous Use data is enabled, chat software usage information will be shared with chat software developers. Information that is shared is completely anonymous and will not include any personally identifiable information. Shared information could include such items as settings and error messages, which can aid developers in improving the chat software for all users. You can choose to stop sharing usage and information at any time. User Backup and Restore allows you to back up and restore all user settings, including pronunciation, exceptions, abbreviations, learning word prediction, and all profiles within vocabularies. Saving a user backup is recommended anytime you make modifications to an AAC user's vocabulary and/or settings. Note that the Backup Restore features within this menu will only back up and restore data to the chat software application. If you wish to back up an AAC user's vocabulary and/or settings outside of the chat software, refer to the NovaChat User's Guide for more options. To back up an AAC user's data to the chat software application, select User Backup. You can choose to name your backup. By default, the chat software will name your backup with the current date and time. Select Save. You will also be prompted to save any photos or images you uploaded or downloaded to the device. If for some reason the vocabulary or chat software settings are lost, you can restore a previous user backup by selecting User Restore. You can then select the backup you wish to restore from. Note that this will overwrite any existing user data. Reset Data resets the chat software data to its initial state. The last section of settings we will explore is data logging. Data logging utilizes data collection capabilities on the NovaChat to collect information on a person's language development. When data logging is turned on within the chat software and an AAC user communicates using their vocabulary, the data from all communication on the device is collected. You can then upload that data to the Realized Language website to analyze, monitor, and measure the individual's use of the device. Realized Language is an online subscription-based service that organizes and analyzes communication data from PRC-Saltillo AAC devices. You can generate reports and track an AAC user's progress and communication development over time. When data logging is enabled within the chat software, you will see an icon in the speech display bar that indicates data logging is on. To learn more about Realized Language, including how to set up an account and how to connect your NovaChat to a Realized Language account, go to realizedlanguage.com or search for Connecting NovaChat to a Realized Language account on PRC-Saltillo's YouTube. To learn more about the chat software on the NovaChat, go to prc-saltillo.com and select Saltillo from the waffle in the upper left corner.